As the city of St. Louis loses thousands of people every year, a handful of neighborhoods are actually growing. According to the last census, most of that growth is happening through the city's central corridor, especially in neighborhoods south and east of Forest Park. I'm Nathan Vickers for First Alert Ford, and some things those neighborhoods have in common include building housing, improving public safety, and an emphasis on quality of life. For the last 30 years, the Washington University Medical Center Redevelopment Corporation has worked to stabilize housing and public safety across 11 neighborhoods, working with more than $480 million in investments in an area with more than 40,000 people. I sat down with Brian Phillips, the director of that organization, to find out what has helped those neighborhoods move forward.
We do the things that other people can't until they can, and then we move on to something else. And so we try to work with the community to identify issues and see if we can come up with a common solution. And where we can help, we'll try to help.
What's the result of the work you've done today?
By 2020, this neighborhood was one of only 5 neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis that grew in population, and the population has almost doubled here. So that's one thing. The real estate market has been fully re-engaged here, and it remains a mixed income neighborhood because we have permanent affordable housing scattered throughout the community. That's a huge impact. Manchester Avenue, which had in the late 90s, early 2000s, it may have had about 6 functioning front door businesses. A lot of the buildings were occupied, but they were being used as warehouse space, has now been transformed to a mile-long commercial district that attracts 3.8 million visitors a year.
This is the Grove.
This is the Grove. They went from hardly any activity on the street to now being a street that attracts around 3.8 million visits every single year. And that means huge tax revenue going back to the city of St. Louis in terms of retail sales and things of that nature. We help form the Neighborhood Security Initiative, which is a multi-neighborhood security entity that focuses on crime reduction within their footprint, as well as connecting those folks that might be unhoused or struggling with emotional or mental health issues to get them reconnected back to their continuum of care.
What do you think that says about the nature of development in St. Louis when it comes to building housing and when it comes to transforming neighborhoods?
Well, I think one of our challenges is that our systems are so disjointed. And so you can have a wonderful housing development, but if you don't put the systems in place to support it after it's built, then you run the risk of losing all of that momentum. There has to be a neighborhood voice and a funnel so that as new development is coming, it's being done in compliance with what the neighborhood wishes it to be.
What projects are you working on now that are sort of coming to fruition this summer or in the next year or so?
We've been working with a series of neighborhood groups and community stakeholders along the Delmar corridor to see what do you want to prioritize around there? How can we help with you in prioritizing that? We even formed this informal group called the Delmar Collaborative, which was a way to bring people that were both immediately adjacent north of Delmar as well as south of Delmar together to really rethink what that street is. You know, from both the common perception that Delmar is the dividing line between north and south, Delmar is the dividing line between the haves and the have-not. Our proposition was, why not look at Delmar as our common living room? And Delmar Main Street is a perfect example. Delmar Main Street, the evolution of it came out of the collaborative. What we found from here in our staff, we were working with a bunch of different stakeholders along Delmar. And what we found is that they didn't know one another. And so the collaborative was about bringing them together and one, hey, have you ever met the person that's working in the next section over? And 2, getting them to share what they were all working on.
Do you think people realize that there's a desire to build in the city and there's a desire to build these kinds of housing projects in the city, to build a single family home in the city?
I think people understand that there's a desire to do that. I think where a lot of people get stumped is where to start. Because we don't have kind of those seamless, systematic places where you can go, I want to build a house, where do I go and start? There's not an obvious place to start.
It sounds like what you're saying is that the pieces are all there, we just need coordination.
We need to build an ecosystem. If you look around the country in terms of what their systems look like, other cities that look like ours, they have that predictable funding that's there, which allows them to really dig in and do the work in a very community-centered way, as well as having the support immediately above them. And we have all of those components. We just need to figure out how to bring everybody to the table and to figure out how to start our system so that we work more effectively together.
What are your thoughts? What neighborhoods do you think need to grow? Email us right now at forward@firstalertfor.com.